This past week I've been working on a bunch of leaves for a project, and I thought maybe it would be interesting to look at making a die that you could use to make leaves. Now typically when I make a leaf I chisel the veins in, which is really the exact opposite of the way a leaf looks in nature. The veins are typically raised. I'm John Switzer and you're watching Black Bear Forge. By going to a die, we can actually make raised veins in our leaves, and there are advantages and disadvantages of doing it that way, and we'll talk about that as we go. But to make this die, I have a little piece of what looks like is labeled 4130. The marking is kind of wearing off. This is something one of you viewers sent out to me quite some time ago, so I don't remember what the backstory is or even who sent it. But if you're the one that sent these little blocks to me, thank you very much. They had a hole in them when I got them, so I trimmed this one just a little bit short so that it doesn't have a hole in it. And this will be plenty to make a little die for the size leaf I'm looking at. This block then is 1 1/8 inches thick, 1.5 inches wide, and 2 inches long. That makes that about 30 millimeters thick, a little under 40 millimeters wide, and 50 millimeters long. Just what I happen to have on hand. There's no magic size to this. Although I'm starting to think as I do more and more little dies like this, making them all exactly the same and then making a simple holder that goes in the hardy hole of the anvil or another style holder that goes under the fly press or the hydraulic press might be a really good way to go. And that way these things can be moved around and you only need one die and 3 different holders. And you make all the dies you want, don't have to keep making duplicates of the same die to use under different tools. So I may look into that at some point in the future if I keep making more of these. I think I'll work in the coal forge today, so I need to go clean that out, get a fire going, and we'll get to work. Now to make our leaf die, I think I want to sink an impression into the die block so that the leaf can have some volume, and this will kind of refine the basic shape of the leaf, but I don't want it to define a specific profile of the leaf, so I want it to have very gentle transitions out to the top of the block, and that way I can do bigger or smaller leaves depending on what it is I need to do. So to do that I want to sink something into the block, and I would like kind of a diamond-shaped impression so that it has kind of a central ridge that will become the central vein when we actually put the veins into the block. And I don't have any diamond-shaped material. But so often when you forge square bar out, you end up creating a diamond you didn't really want. So let's see if we can do that intentionally and look at the reason that actually happens. I think one of the main reasons we tend to forge diamond shapes in bars is because we're not striking perfectly parallel with the anvil. We're striking a little high because our anvil is low or just because of our hammer stance. Or if we're striking this way, it's because our anvil might be a little bit too high, or maybe we just need to stand up a little bit straighter. But in this example, if we're forging here, we start thinning this side more than this side. Then when we turn it 90 degrees and we start doing that, this starts getting off, and we're turning 90 degrees every blow, and it just gets worse and worse and worse unless we correct up here. And at some point it gets very hard to correct. In this situation, I'm going to try to do that intentionally. It is starting to go off on a diamond there. Use the peen a little bit here to try and spread this out on either side of the diamond I've created. There's probably other ways to create this shape. I just thought I'd try this. Now we can come back to the back and put the bevel right there on the anvil. And that really gives me the shape I'm after very nicely. Just need to trim it so it comes to kind of a point. This is just mild steel, and it probably isn't going to last any more than doing this one impression, but it should last plenty long enough to at least get that done. So I'm just going to let this cool and heat up this other block. Then we'll start sinking this into the die block, and I'm going to try and create kind of a taper so this kind of feathers out and tapers into the block so that it's a nice smooth transition. There may be some grinding or something involved with this, but we'll see what we end up with. Make sure you reseat it every time. It's going to make an interesting die even if I don't put veins in it. This really does get the effect I'm after. I definitely think some grinding will be in order here. This just kind of gets a central depth of the leaf. And I want to take it to the grinder and ease all this out so it comes all the way up, but I don't want to grind all the way to the edge. I want there to be a lip around here that transitions smoothly, so this kind of serves as a flat spot for larger leaves anyways. We'll see if this all works. So I think I'm going to let that cool, and then we're going to hit the grinder up real quick. Start with a center vein here. I'm going to get a little bit more gentle as I go so it kind of tapers out. I'm going to kind of roll this out so it kind of has a gentle transition. I'll probably get in there with a file or a die grinder before I'm done. The next thing I want to do is put the side veins in. I use the same small fuller I'm using here. But I'm going to have to block this out because it's going to want to slide, so I'll just put a block in the anvil here. So by putting that up against that block, I can hopefully avoid squirting this off the anvil. Fortunately, I think that block may be in my way ultimately. Need a skinnier fuller here, or narrower this direction. So I may need a little shim in there or something like that to get this rocked all the way up. Whatever flaws you put in here at this stage are going to be there on every single leaf you make with this. One of the disadvantages of going to a die is this vein pattern never changes. That could stand to be reheated. That's pretty much what I'm after, I think. And we're going to see what that does. First, I think I'll let it cool, though. It should be good, tough steel. I may not even need to harden and temper it. I think I actually let it cool, hit this with a file a little bit right there to make sure there's not a sharp transition. Then we'll work on a leaf blank and try it out. I think I'll go back to this 5/8 bar and make a fairly good sized leaf. This die looks like it's going to be capable of doing bigger leaves more so than perhaps small leaves. First thing I'm going to do is put a point on this. I'm going to offset a shoulder. Going to start taking the stem part to octagon so it'll be easier to round up later. That's the rough layout for a leaf then. We'll need to put that in there like that. That's going to be plenty of material for this die. I have lightly filed this transition right there. I'm going to use this kind of makeshift clamp setup here to hold that block so it doesn't jump off the anvil. Put that in there. Make sure to re-index it every time because it wants to bounce out. 5/8 is going to be too much material. 1/2 inch bar might have been better. But it's certainly doing what I envision. If anything, it's too dramatic. And I did manage to get it pretty off center there. So the idea is certainly valid. I think a smaller piece of material is the way to go there. And I might grind that flatter in there just to get rid of some of the depth of the veins, because I think that's way too dramatic. Try to get in a 1/2 inch bar. Interesting. Forge that out to square, then octagon. It's starting to twist, but when we go to round, you'll never notice it. I'm just smoothing it up at a low heat now. I'm not really trying to change the shape any. I'm just going to sink that in a stump to give it some more life. Wood stump is a nice place to do things like that because it doesn't squish the detail out of your project. It's soft. And as you wear out the surface, you find a different place and eventually get a different stump. I'll put just a little bevel on that to make it look kind of like it was cut off of a plant. Just add some character to the stem just to make it not quite so straight. And there is a leaf made with our leaf die. I hope you have time in your day to get out to your shop, but be safe, wear your safety glasses. We'll see you for the next one.